The most fundamental distinction in Kant's ethical thought relates to two separately marked capacities that he attributes to human beings. One, that he calls humanity, Menschenheit, is the capacity to set our ends freely. The other, that he calls personality, Persönlichkeit, is the capacity to set one very peculiar set of ends, that is, ends that we perceive as morally obligatory. Humanity is what makes us free beings. Personality is what makes us free in a higher sense that consists of the capacity to choose actions because they seem to be morally obligatory. They must be performed simply because it is right to do so. Interpreters have long debated the role of these two concepts in Kant's thought. Most importantly, they disagree as to whether one capacity or the other is the basis of our special worth and dignity, or, as Kant puts it, of our status as ends in themselves. Some believe that humanity is that basis. Since we are free beings capable of deciding about the ends we want to set for ourselves, we are to be treated in the manner specified by the categorical imperative, that is, never merely as means. Others think that grounding morality on this form of freedom, that is, on our capacity to freely choose our ends, is both incorrect as an attempt to capture Kant's thought and philosophically dubious in its own right. Kant rather had in mind that it is our capacity for moral behavior, personality, that establishes humans' status as ends in themselves, and that is desired form of freedom that at the same time entitles and binds us to morality. On this interpretation, even when in a famous passage in the Groundwork, Kant writes that it is humanity in us that is to be seen as an end in itself, what he really means is that it is humanity insofar as it also embodies the capacity for morality, that is, personality, that entitles us to that status. Thus, the second formula of the categorical imperative, so act that you use humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means, is to be read by paying attention to the fact that humanity appears in your own person and in the person of any other. Similarly, also in the Groundwork, Kant says that what makes a rational being an end in itself is morality, and humanity insofar as it is capable of morality. According to the first reading, we are special creatures because we can steer our lives freely. We are not determined by nature in our choices. According to the second, our special worth, our dignity, lies not in the fact that we are in control of our actions. They are not determined by our impulses or circumstances, but in the fact that additionally we can act even when the righteousness of our conduct is the sole motivation. As Kant puts it, when respect for the moral law is the determining ground of our behavior. So which of these two readings is closer to the truth? The answer is not easy. While it is clear that for Kant the capacity to decide what to do freely is what makes us more valuable than animals, it is equally clear that it is insufficient to confer on us any intrinsic and absolute worth, a worth capable of generating categorical obligations on how we are supposed to treat ourselves and others. In short, it seems to be the basis of humans' status as ends in themselves for Kant is personality, not humanity. Thus, it is personality that is the source of moral normativity. However, things are not that simple. In fact, it is extremely difficult to even conceptualize a being endowed with humanity and yet deprived of personality. If we are truly free in our actions, it is hard to envision how we could be free and yet unable to act from duty, that is, having the moral law as our sole motivation. At least from a Kantian perspective, reason is the highest authority behind our decisions. We always decide what we do. When our reason suggests that an action is morally demanded, treating this command as something we can simply disregard as if it didn't apply to the entities like we take ourselves to be, namely rational beings always in charge with respect to our behavior, borders on inconsistency. This means that our capacity for moral behavior does seem to follow from our rationality. Of course, we can remain rational and let the call of morality be constantly overcome by our interests or sensuous motives. That is part of our freedom. What cannot be completely erased, though, is the capacity to do otherwise, to act on what our reason commands. So perhaps the truth lies halfway between the two readings. On the one hand, the notion of an agent endowed with rationality and yet unable to act as morality requires is oblivious of the fact that moral agency is nothing but an occurrence of ordinary end setting, which would be humanity. On the other hand, this form of agency does have something special that seems to presuppose an altogether different and higher capacity. It is not just that we can freely evaluate what our desires or wishes suggest. It is rather that we are supposed to find an overarching determining ground for our action in the sheer recognition of the validity of the moral law. That is, to be motivated in full independence of sensuous drives. And this does appear to be something special or a higher form of freedom.